In this video, we're going to look at another pair of form input types, checkboxes and radio buttons. They're a little more complicated to deal with than text fields or select boxes because they can be on or off, but also carry a value the way other inputs do. Let's scroll down a little bit so we can see our radio buttons and checkboxes of interest. We'll start with the checkboxes. I'll check this one and inspect it. So I have a label field here, and then the little checkbox that goes with it appears before. So I'm going to copy its ID. And we'll switch back over to the JavaScript console and select it using document, get element by ID. All right, let's look at its value first, the same way we did with the text fields. We come back with yes. Okay, let's turn it off and try that again. Same thing. Okay, so this is obviously not working the way we might expect at first. But the value attribute on this checkbox is set to yes. So if we're passing this off for some back-end processing, this C special gift will come through with the value of yes. But that doesn't tell us what we want to know from a JavaScript perspective. What we want to know is this box checked or not? And as it turns out, there's a property for that. It's called checked. So I'm going to hit an up arrow here and change this value to checked. And that returns true because this checkbox is checked. If I uncheck it, try it again, false. Great. So when we're concerning ourselves with checkboxes, we want to use this checked property, not the value. If we want to get all the checkboxes in this little group that are checked, I'm going to go and find a way to select this whole group. It has a class called special, so I'm going to use a different selector. I'm going to use query selector. I'm going to select that special group. There it is. That will give me everything that's inside that div tag. And subsequently inside that, I want to get all the checkboxes. Query selector uses CSS syntax, so I can use all the same syntax that I would use to style these elements in CSS. So I'm looking for all the inputs with an attribute of type, which is equal to checkbox. Because that's, of course, how we create our checkboxes. And then I can add on the pseudo class of checked. I'll actually change this to query selector all to make sure that I return all of them, not just the first one. And there we go. Now I get a little node list, which is an array containing each of the checkboxes that are checked. If I turn one of them off, use an up arrow and come back, now I just get one. So there are different ways that you can address your checkboxes. You just want to make sure that you're always using the checked property to figure out which ones are checked and which ones are not. Now let's look at radio buttons. I'll clear this console first. Radio buttons are set up so that only one in any given group can be selected. And the way that they're grouped, if I inspect this, is by the name attribute on the inputs. In this case, it's r_method. Radio buttons also use the checked property to tell you which one is selected. But it's not enough with radio buttons. You need to know what the value is also, because they all share the same ID. So we're going to use query selector to figure out which one of these in this group is the one that's checked. This is a little longer. We'll go with document query selector. And what we're looking for is the input whose name is r_method, just paste that back in, which is checked. There it is. This returns the input, and now we need to get its value. So we can use the same syntax and get its value property, USPS for the US mail. If I change this to UPS, up arrow, hit return again, get UPS. And finally, if someone's picking up their order, we get pickup. We can also set all these different values. In this case, if I want to set which one of these is checked using JavaScript, I need to go back and get the ID to make this easy on myself. So I'm going to tell it to set UPS, say, r-method UPS. So I'll use document.getElementById, and I'm going to set the checked property to true. Fortunately, the browser handles turning the other one off for me automatically. And the same thing works on checkboxes. I'll sign up for the mailing list. We'll turn this one on. And there it is. Radio buttons and checkboxes have this checked property which tells us if they're on and off, and they can also hold a value. Just remember that with checkboxes, we need to look at that checked property, and for radio buttons, we need to find out first which one is checked, and then pull its value.